Good night, viewers, and welcome to this another program of Advancing the Cause. This is a weekly feature and comes to you every Wednesday night from 16, rather 18:30 hours to 20 hours. The official host of this program is the Honorable Coretta MacDonald, Member of Parliament and General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, who is unavoidably absent tonight, and for her I tender an excuse. The topic for tonight is Guyana. The time is now. And the order of the presentation would be public service issues, enforcement agency issues, regional issues, and then we'd have a conclusion. These are all broad areas that will be broken down into specific details as we proceed with this discourse. The last time I hosted this program, we started late because of external interference, so we were not able to touch or to give to you all the topics that were listed. We regret that situation from our side, and as we commence the program, we will incorporate the topics we did not cover so last week, so you would not miss out anything. Please note, and I want all our viewers to note and to understand that the information given here is as a result of concerns and issues raised by credible source across this region. And because this program and other social media programs are so effective in so many ways, very many persons are of the opinion that they should share their concerns and ideas with those of us who host these programs. And as such, we are receiving submissions and we are able to relate these submissions to you. Hence, this topic for tonight, Guyana, the time is near. And so we commence this session now formally by dealing with public service issues. And you know that in the public service, which would include the public servant and teachers, and by extension other workers that are paid from the treasury, are in a very sad and bad state of affairs. Maybe I should not include one set, and that might be the workers at Gaisuku. Because everything their union asks for GAU, and I'm going to come about GAU as it relates to the Enmore Martyrs Day and the presentation made by the president of GAU and some of his political speech he made, but still referring to his political bosses. But I want to deal with some of the issues in the public service that is really and truly bringing down this country to a halt. And that is why we are saying that the time is near. Recently, and I think some time ago I made mention in a very brief way that the chief education officer of this country, and I have the evidence, is using the Police Service Commission letterhead to give advice to the officers of the Ministry of Education and by extension, the departments of education across this country. And in that piece of correspondence, using the letterhead of the Police Service Commission, he advised them that vacancies are out for a number of positions. By now, those vacancies, the closing date would have been out. And so, one major cause for concern as it relates to this is that credible sources have advised us, and I'm bringing it to the notice of the public because it is not going to affect one person, but it is going to affect more persons. And that is going to be a state in which you would have supersession and you would have consideration for politically affiliated persons, friends, families, and favorites of the PPP. And so I now make mention of at least one of the district education officer, one, who is attached to a particular region, Department of Education. And she's boasting about her having a very close relative sitting as a member of the Public Service Commission. Maybe that person might be an aunt of the district education officer, one. And she would have indicated that despite the circumstances and all those who might be senior to her place as a district education officer is sealed and signed already. I bring this to the notice of the attention of all our viewers because two things here. One, it is a level of discrimination. And the second thing, it is, or it might be, a conflict of interest. Having a relative sitting on the Public Service Commission and another relative who is a DO1 applying for a position as DO2. And the person who sits on the commission is there to make that decision. I am calling out right now the Public Service Union to make that level of inquiry to ensure that there is no discrimination among some levels of public offices. And so we have to be able, like how the last election they had some kind of democracy, somebody watching over democracy, the guardians, so to speak, of democracy, and all the guardians would have run away and hiding somewhere. And they peep and shoot their head, meaning peeping up and shooting up. Before you say that, I'm saying shooting. Pushing up their heads at times when it becomes necessary for them to show. This is the time for them to rise up again and look at this discrimination. The second thing I want to talk about as a matter of public service issue or interest is this unqualified occupants of government quarters. And may I mention, and for the purpose of those who want the necessary support and information, I now say to you this. The Public Service Rules and Regulations, 1987 edition, Section N speaks to the government quarters N1, 2, and 3 of this section give clear guidance for the public officers to be allocated government quarters. And that is clear because it is there in the public service rules and regulations. And I've given you the edition, which is 1987. And I've given you the section N, and I've given specific in terms of the three areas, one, N1, N2, and N3. So you can go and do your own research and see who are, as stipulated there, are not entitled or eligible, who are, as stated there, that can make or can occupy government quarters. But this is it. When someone occupies government quarters, three things happen. One, you pay 10% of your salary for rental for houses or accommodation that are unfurnished. If that accommodation is furnished, then you pay 12% of your salary as rental. And then the third category would be officers who are entitled to rent-free quarters based on their level of appointment or on transfer to a region. It is different in the Teaching Service Commission, where you have to be able to provide accommodation. And that is why when they put out the Teaching Service Commission, put out that list of vacancies, you always see house available or house not available. And that gives you the clear indication of guidance. And so as I come back to the public service rules and regulations, there are some regions after 2020 would have done a very wild, unceremonious, uncouth, and against the public service rules and regulations, allocating quarters for persons that are not so or not eligible, so to speak. And you can argue about eligibility, but the mere fact that they hold certain positions, some of them just come on a job, 1 or 2 months on the job, 1 year on the job, and an extension to that, a number of things happen. One, they don't pay rent. Two, they do not pay their utility bills. And what are their utility bills in this region or in some regions and other regions? You might have 3 utility bills. In some regions, you have light, water, telephone. In some regions, you have light and water alone. But with this state of blackouts across this country, sometimes we say May in June. We now have to say December or Christmas in June, because we are accustomed to having fairy lights in December and at Christmas time. In this country, we are fortunate that this government is so caring for our people that it brings on fairy light without any expenditure to us going to these places to buy these lights every single day and night. And so I make mention of that because these are worrying issues in the public service, so that our public servants and teachers are not comfortable with that. Their children are not comfortable with that. Our pensioners are not comfortable with that. Housewives are not comfortable with that. Very many workers, business people are not comfortable with that. And you're talking about business people. I noticed there is a letter that was sent to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, the president of this country, complaining bitterly about the establishment, management, and running of Chinese grocery hardware stores across this country. And I would want to believe that the private sector commission, I might be wrong, but I might want to suggest that they might be the persons behind that letter because it is cause of concern for them. And so what should be cause of concern for them as it relates to the number of things happening in this country, where cost of living is at its highest level and has blown past that? You have never heard them say or made any mention or statement as it relates to cost of living in this country. But they are writing to say that they are concerned about the number of Chinese stores, grocery, and or hardware stores opening up in this country. So that was a side as I speak to the public service rules and regulations as it relates to who would get houses or not. And so these people are enjoying rent-free house. The government pays for, or the state rather, not the government, the state pays for water, utility bills rather. And there's another aspect of it. And that other aspect of it is that weeding and cleaning of the yard and cleaning of those buildings are done and paid for by the respective ministries, whichever way or form, and the respective regional administration. That is contrary to established rules and regulations and norms. And therefore, I want to call out at this stage the very proactive office of the Auditor General. They were seeing all these things during the period of the coalition government. I hope they are seeing, because I said some time ago that I would be calling out them on these issues, and I would be making mention of them. And I would continue to make mention of them. I would continue to call out them because they can't see for one and don't see for the other. And it is worse now because they made up stories in that time. But they have stories now, and they must tell the stories as they are. So I thought it best that I should raise that issue about the unauthorized or the unqualified occupants of government quarters. And I pointed out to you what the regulations would have said about that. I want to now turn to another public service issue. It has to do with appropriation in the 2024 details of expenditure. There are other regions and there are other agencies that would have found themselves in the same situation that I would relate to you using Region 2 as an example. More particularly the Department of Education. So for Region 2, under education, there is a sum of $12 million for rental of building on the line item 6241. May I repeat? $12 million for rental of building under 6241. But I give you further details as I go forward. Many questions need to be asked and answered. Who authorized this spending? Second question, can the regional education officer give an account of the location of this building? The next question is, for what purpose such building was rented and used for? Who were the persons or which agency or organization used this building? This is a very important area of concern. This is a service that would have been provided for, paid for, as accounted for under the slide item and spent in 2023. Somebody might say that I said 24 appropriation I'm dealing with. But I'm dealing with the appropriation, but I'm dealing with the spending. At the same time, if you look at the expenditure profile, detail of expenditure profile in 2024, it would give you a reflection of what happened in the transaction in 2023. And this money would have been spent, $12 million for rental of building in Region 2, education, under education, and somebody has to answer. This is a real matter of serious matter of misappropriation of state funds, and the regional education officer should be held accountable. Again, I am calling out the very proactive Auditor General and members of his staff to give an account or to say to the public or give details to the public as it relates to this particular expenditure, because it is cause for concern. And once it is cause for concern, there is need for us to be able to address these questions frontingly. If we don't, it is going to be a reoccurrence. And once there is a reoccurrence, and once I suggest, if there is a blindness, so to speak, on the part of the Auditor General Office, then the Guyanese people are not properly represented using state money to pay a certain level of officers. Recently, we were boldly told that during the period 2020 to present, that public servants in this country would have benefited from $83 billion. Let me repeat. We would have been told, and this is not plucking out anything from the air, this is what would have been said, written, and is there, that during the period 2020 to present, that this government would have spent $83 billion on public servants. This is about, I say to you, this is about the biggest joke during the same period by this government. If anyone is to believe this untruth and this unprofessional way of putting over propaganda, then we better know that the time is near. Guyana, the time is near. And so we need to not be fooled. Let us not be fooled. There's no change in anything. And public servants remain as they are since they were given a last bit of good. And I put it this way, a last good increase in salary during the period of the coalition government. You know, in Guyana, no Guyanese, or there is no charge, or there has never been any conviction for any Guyanese to call any figure. Whether this figure has to do with rice production, cane production, sugarcane production, other crops production, milk production, or any figure as it relates to money. And this is one that is related to money. $83 billion for public servants. And so again I say, let us not be fooled with these fictitious figures for the purpose of those who are wayward and want to say that things would have happened. And some people are not seeing. We are seeing it because it did not happen. And that is why we are seeing it. And so this $83 billion, it might be a good thing if this government, which says that it is a caring government, can very well give the details, not sketchy story, the details as to how, where, and when this $83 billion would have been spent on our public servants. In which of the budgets since 2020 to now, putting them separately, allowing us to add up so that we can get $83 billion for public servants. And so, this again, this time I'm asking, because the Auditor General is a servant of this country. He is paid by our money, meaning state funds. He's not paid by the government, it's state funds. There's a difference between state funds and the government funds. State fund is all of us money. The government money is what the fellas get and how they use it. And so the Auditor General, as a paid servant, as a servant of the people of this country, should allow his officers to investigate and to show us in this country where that $83 billion came from. This is a very, another point is payment of old age pension. A number of things about old age pension in this country. Every time that date and a particular day of payment of old age pension is due, and you go out there to any of these locations and you look at our pensioners, it is cause for concern. And why I say it is cause for concern, whether it rains or whether it shines, they have to bear that situation. And they have long lines, waiting long hours, without any kind of support given to them as it relates to any water, any refreshment, or anything. I'm not saying that the post office is a financially viable place so that they can give. I'm saying NIS is a very viable organization that collects money every month, not from all, because I'm going to come to deal with NIS just so. I'm going to come to deal with them, right? So our pensioners, our old age pensioners, at a particular time in the year would be called for their new books at whatever distribution point or location. And when they get there, they sign. But two things you must recognize: that there are persons who have the age to receive old age pension, resides in Guyana, and may be receiving or not receiving it. But that is not the point. This is the point I want to make. At a particular time in the year, when these pension books are so distributed, and this is told to me across all the regions, at whichever location, the overseas based Guyanese who would have been permanent in another country receiving payments of, I don't know if they call it old age or they call it pension, but they are receiving some level of remuneration because of their age, and they are receiving other benefits because of their age. But they find it and make it their duty to come to this country in an effort to receive their books, sign off all the pages, not dating them, and this is an assumption that I am making because it was told. I'm making an assumption despite the fact it was told to me. So I want to say it is alleged that they sign these pages, and when it is time for a person or persons to go to wherever to retrieve that by surrendering that voucher, this person is already out of the country. That is what you call misappropriation of state funds. This is a matter that is very discriminatory to our old age pensioners, because if you take away what they are taking from us, not the old age pension, those who come in this country and receive and then go out back, then our old age pensioners in this country can receive more. So again, I'm calling out This might be, I don't know. The police find all sorts of things. I'm coming to the police also, especially the eyes in the sky and sky in the eyes. They need to take a look at this because it is alleged. They must go and find the information. I want to call out strongly the Minister of Social Services. And if somebody who is listening, if he or she has any link to that minister who is responsible, I don't know the name of the minister, but I think I know the Ministry of Social Services. Tell the minister this discriminatory act must stop immediately because the public is now hearing it. All Guyanese are hearing it who are listening to this program. The overseas persons are listening to this program and they are hearing it. And again, the goodly Auditor General. When you audit, I am not directing you. I can't. But you must know that we are going to call you out. And just how you were active during the period, during the coalition, we want your activism to still become engaged, so to speak. And so I thought it fit that I should, based on what we call popular, not response, but requests, to have us say on this program about the situation. I now turn to the next level of our major topic, which is enforcement agency issues. You know, Guyana has a number of enforcement agencies. And very many of these enforcement agencies are now sleeping. Now very selective in what they do. But I'm going to call them out and I'm going to say to you the number of things that are happening. And the first thing I want to do is to deal, because despite the fact that NIS is a service provider, it is also in some of its departments or work to be done. It is enforcement work. And that is an agency. And I don't want to say that they are an agency that, but I say it very politely, that is an agency that we need to look at carefully. And so our public officers, teachers, and public servants, despite the fact they are making their contribution, and the contributions sometimes are not made, but upfront these contributions from both the employee and in the employer, and this is in the government service, not in the private service, private sector, they are deducted upfront and paid to NIS, both from the employer and from the employee. And so when these submissions are made, and our public officers and teachers make simple claims in an effort to have a refund based on medical sickness benefits and maternity and other benefits. And I use this phrase guardedly. They see the hell out of NIS to have a refund of this money. and from credible sources. And if you listen to other viewpoints, programs, and public officers are allowed to speak, and when they speak out, you would find that some, just like the police officers, you have some who are very courteous and some who are on the other side. And I have to be careful when I say the other side. The other side might mean something else, that they are not as courteous as those who are courteous. And so when our public officers and teachers make these submissions, there's this long delay. Sometimes they do not find their submissions. Sometimes, and this was what was told to us, this is the information we receive, and we are saying that it is alleged that there are some officers of these NIS offices rather, across this country are not as polite as they should be, being paid from state funds, because NIS is a state entity. And despite the fact it is operating like that, it is still a state entity, and the persons that are paid there are public officers, and they receive state money. And because they are public servants and public officers, they need to provide public service in a very humane, humble, and polite way. And if that is only done, then those public servants and teachers who make their claims for medical sick benefit, or who make their claims, the females, for what they call the maternity benefits. Sometimes I want to use again the phrase, they get the hell out of the situation. They go up, down, up, in, out, in. And it takes a very long time. And when they add up the time, if you put a value to that, money value, you put a value to what you spend for, you put a value for the meals, and you put a value to what you have to pay somebody to look your child after, then whatever sum of money they have to pay you, it is far less than what you would have already spent. Why is it NIS cannot put its act together so that our public officers and teachers can receive the authorized and the legal benefit and entitlement? You should not see any difference in person. You should not see religion in persons. You should treat all alike. And if by chance you see that a public officer is working more than you are when you sit in the seat at NIS, do not treat them as though because they are getting more than you are, I'm just assuming, and you do not want to treat them right. You do not have to do that. You are paid for a service and provide that service. And so NIS is giving people or putting people in situations that are very, very uncomfortable, despite the fact that the NIS monies are so deducted. And then the last point I want to make about NIS is that it might be good enough, based on what is happening when you submit your claims to NIS, and these are things said to us, when that sum of money, for example, if you go to a private hospital, that is told to us, and you had to do any kind of surgery, and that surgery with all the tests and all these kinds of things would have added up to a large sum of money. We are told, been in this program, that NIS makes it a duty at that particular time, and I put it over this way, to dot all the I's and to cross all the T's as it relates to the examination of those submissions for refund of money that you are entitled to based on legal submission of documents. And some people would have said to us that they get the distinct impression that NIS staff, some so to speak, are of the opinion that those sums of money spent and now being claimed for as a refund, that the staff, that sum of money of refund is coming from the pocket of the staff. That is not so. It is coming from state resources. It is coming from the contributions force would have made to NIS over the years. And so I say that scheme, so you have to give credit where credit is due. That scheme was established under the astute and dynamic leadership of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham because he saw all the goodness in that scheme. But if he were to be alive and to see what is happening with his scheme that he created to allow public officers, the private sector, so to speak, also, and our teachers and other persons to benefit, what has become of that scheme? It has been a milking cow for some people. It has become a bank. It has become a loan agency for some people. And for that loan, some people are not paying back, I want to believe. And so I make mention of that so that we can better understand that these enforcement agencies need to give the service for which they are paid. I move to another point. Recently, a number of persons would have reported to us at this program saying that across different regions in this country, there are a number of unauthorized and illegal workshops operating. And some people would have written letters to, and these letters would have been addressed to, and I'm going to identify later on what are the underlying factors, the discriminatory factors as stated. And so they have written letters of concern to the Guyana Revenue Authority, the National Insurance Scheme, again they come back, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Guyana Power and Light Company, the Ministry of Labor. Those were the agencies that they would have indicated that they wrote as it relates to these unauthorized and illegal workshops, mechanical workshops, electrical workshops across this country that is causing total discomfort to the environment, the residents. And mind you, that all of these areas would have been identified as residential area. And so when they wrote these letters to these agencies, there has been no respect for the citizens of this country because none of them had a courtesy in the normal course of their duty as paid for to quietly respond to the letters they receive. And mind you, these persons would have indicated to us that these letters went by registered post. And I don't understand what registered post is all about, but I want to believe that you go to the post office, you pay some sum of money to get a letter out, and the safety of it is there, and the delivery is there. So these are the things or weaknesses they would have identified and said to me, NIS, and this has to be now with these illegal workshops in residential areas that are causing harm, disruption, confusion among citizens, old people, people who are going to university, people are going to college, people are going to secondary, primary, nursery school, people are attending other institutions, Guyana School of Agriculture, the technical institutes across this country. They are at the receiving end of these bad situations emanating out of these workshops. And so they would have indicated in their letter that none of these forces are making any contribution to the national insurance scheme. None of them would have been registered. None of their employees, if they are legal, and I don't think they are legal, based on what I heard, are making any contributions to NIS. And one of them would have indicated to me that because of what they know about some officers, and they have not blamed all of NIS, that it is good not for them to come because they compromised on the ground and NIS is left at a loss, not receiving. They do their business on the ground. As a matter of fact, one person would have indicated to me that he saw some time ago, and I can't recall the location or the region, but he clearly said to me it was a holiday and he was passing through and he saw an NIS officer exiting his car, going to a businessman in a very lonely spot on the road. He said nothing more. And because he didn't say anything more, I don't know anymore. But it is left for us as citizens of this country to make our own conclusions. So that is about NIS there. The other agency is the Guyana Revenue Authority. You know, Guyana Revenue Authority is a very important agency. Very, very many things. And so these people operate without any TIN number. I am making these points because I'm going to come to see. But let me make the point now. I'm making these points because our teachers who would have been on the strike line, the protest line, for the past couple of, I want to believe, 65 days there, about 66 days, shouting, asking, politely begging for what is due to them, and they are not receiving. But these deductions are made from them, legally entitled workers in this country. But these people don't pay, they don't have TIN numbers. They do not submit tax returns. But our teachers and public officers have to do tax returns every year. As a matter of fact, some of our officers, depending on the status, they have to respond to the Integrity Commission. And by the way, I'm asking and I'm telling the Integrity Commission, if they are listening, there are some officers in some regions and agencies, government agencies and ministries, who are supposed to submit their Integrity Commission report it might be a good thing if they can check on that. But I'm saying this to make that comparison that our public servants and our teachers are in a position in which they have to make those submissions. But these people don't have the number, they don't make these foods. So this is a runaway train with these illegal workshops, unauthorized workshops in the different areas, in residential areas across this country. EPA, as it relates to these same illegal and unauthorized mechanical, electrical workshops and other workshops. There have been numerous complaints about noise, dust, and chemical pollution in these residential areas. And the EPA would have been so advised, but the EPA has not to date paid any heed to this very serious health issue. And so if by chance people become ill as a result of these dust, noise, and chemical pollution, EPA must give an answer. So again, the public is so made aware, our viewers are so made aware, and so I'm calling out the Environmental Protection Agency to allow themselves to do the work, to do it diligently, to do it faithfully, and with the level of honesty that it deserves. And again, the EPA has not, because they have not provided the EPA with the opportunity to do an environmental impact assessment in this residential area. And as I speak, if by chance anybody is aware that they have any contact with, relationship with, or know any relationship with the Environmental Protection Agency, allow them to know that these are concerns of residents in residential area across this country. And so the third thing they would have indicated from the EPA is that they do not believe the Environmental Protection Agency would have allowed or given any permission to operate these workshops. So I'm bringing out in the public so that more and more people would be aware of the suffering of residents in residential area. And in some areas, they have indicated to me that they are industrial sites. And in these industrial sites, they have allocated land for these kinds of things. So why not? They are asking the question, why not these people go to these these industrial sites and areas to do? They made mention of the Guyana Power and Light because in some cases, these people operate, and this is an allegation, they have said that to us, in areas in which there was a house, a tent or a structure was put up either at the side or the front or back. And when they wired that house and it was passed and the payment is so assigned to them, it is domestic consumption. GPL, I want you to listen. Don't worry too much about giving us blackout. Listen also, because some of you don't have blackout now. You have to listen to this program because it is cause of concern and it's people's life. So when you give permission for the payment of residential meter, what you call it, and these people are using it for domestic consumption, and they use it for industrial consumption by using very heavy duty, well, let me rephrase, using heavy duty machinery, destabilizing the flow of electricity in these areas across this country, it is not only as a result of these things. Some people said one night ago, two couple nights ago, because of this heavy load that is being extracted from these workshops, 3 transformers blow the way out rather, and the entire area was left in blackout for a number of days. This happened in a particular region that I'm not going to make mention of because I don't remember, so I can't make mention of it. And so GPL, you need to take a very serious look at that here, because they are paying for one, as indicated, for domestic consumption, but they are using at the industrial level rate, unauthorized, so to speak. GPL, you have work, do your work. And then the Ministry of Labor, all these workshops and all these regions have labor officers, and they are all lame ducks, these labor officers. They do not do their work because when they go to these workshops, there might be, as suggested by these persons who reported to us, there might be a level of exchange. One on the one hand, continue to the wrong thing. And as you continue to the wrong thing, those who are authorized to continue to the wrong thing would pass on some level of benefit to these labor officers. And it is alleged that there is some level of compromise. And this level of compromise is permitting all these persons working at these unauthorized and illegal workshops not to be in any personal protective gear. You know, when you go to a workshop and you look at signage, the first sign you would see is safety begins here. And that is at the first entry to that workshop. And they have indicated, or reliable sources have indicated, or credible sources rather, would have indicated at no point in time there has been any signage to give that direction. None of them wear personal protective clothing or gear, helmets, safety boots, gloves, overall, and these kinds of things. And the Ministry of Labor, the labor officers, they are so much in labor that they don't have time to do their work. I'm calling out the Ministry of Labor at this time to ensure these regulations are properly upheld. But these people, some of these ministers, when you talk about these things, before seeking and going to the situation, correcting it, they get on these high horses and try to say to you that representation you would have made for these people are not so. Let them go and visit, and they would see for themselves. And if they don't know, they can't fool me as easy as, because I served once upon a time as a director of the Board of Industrial Training. Once upon a time, I used to be the principal of the Essequibo Technical Institute and the Linden Technical Institute. Well, in Linden, they call it the trade school. So make no mistake, Ministry of Labor, because what I'm saying here is conforming from my own self what our credible sources would have indicated to us. So I'm calling out, and the next agency I'm calling out, the fire service. The fire service based on its rules and regulations, ought to give permission. One, inspect. Two, give permission. If this inspection will have ticked all the areas, they have to also interview persons around the area. That was not done. Not anything about the fire service because these things are unauthorized and illegal. And so the fire service can do its work if it is not so properly notified. And so in these workshops and cases, there is a fire that is waiting to happen because of the situations. Credible source again. So I thought it fit. That might have been a very long issue, but it is worth the while because it is concern for all of us in this country. And why these things are happening? It is as a result of a decline in standard in all these agencies and ministry of the people who they would have replaced or who would have replaced good persons that were once there. Regional issues. But I say to us as and you the viewers, regional issues. It is a collective of all the regions of this country, as credible sources would have indicated to us. So regional issues would not necessarily mean a particular region, but as a collective across the regions in this country. In some cases, we might be able to point to this region, which is region 2. Because number one, and I want all of us to open up our ears and to share this very important piece of information. Credible sources would have indicated to us, and I now put this as an alleged situation, that each month it is alleged, because people are quick to run to court. But if I say it is alleged, then I don't know what they can do about it. It is alleged, and this is what came from credible sources, that the Department of Health in this region, region 2, is paying a private transporter that is using a minibus at a particular location of the Department of Health in this region. And listen to this one, brace your backs. $500,000 per month as rental for this, the use of this minibus. Credible sources have also indicated to me that the Department of Health has adequate and more than adequate transportation to do the work of the Department of Health. And it is alleged that the person who is providing this service is a relative of a very senior officer of the Department of Health. So a number of questions I want to ask. on behalf of the credible sources and concerned citizens of this region and all here. It might happen in other regions. When this sum was put to the Ministry of Finance for discussion, so that this particular proposal can go and to be part of the budget or for the expenditure for this year. When this sum was put, if it was put, what justification was made? On the other hand, is there an appropriation under any line item for this sum of money? And then it might be good enough. Again, it might be good enough. Because the Auditor General is a public officer, I don't mind saying what I'm saying about the Auditor General office. I'm not talking about a person, I'm talking about an office. Because those people who work in that office are paid by the state, people's money, and they ought to provide service. I'm now calling them. And I repeat myself, I said to them some time ago, I will be calling them out. I'm calling them out again. I'm calling out the Guyana Police Force. I don't have the information. I'm saying what credible sources. And I'm saying it is alleged. So they can't come to me for the information. I'm saying it is alleged. So Commissioner of Police, you and your officers know. I'm saying it is alleged. Award of contracts, next point. We are advised that we want to put allegation that contracts in this region and other regions across this country, and this is across the country, in all the regions, are given to selected persons, friends, families, and favorites of this government. And since this is happening, there has been total discrimination of persons who would have been shortlisted as pre-qualified contractors. So this is a discriminatory act. It is alleged that no evaluation committee meets, but there is a signing off. It is further alleged that there is a brief meeting before the real meeting of the tender board in these regions, it is alleged. And decisions are made at that level and then go to the tender board. And then they have to sign off on it. It is alleged. So again, Auditor General, just like how you were active in 2015 to 2020 during the coalition period in government, knowing very well that the evaluation committee meetings, reports, minutes of tender board were all presented to your officers, and they were in the state of denial at the time. I hope they will not be in a state of denial when these facts or these allegations are out there. The third point I want to make, all across this country, it would have been indicated to us that there is a total misuse of government vehicles for personal reasons and purposes. And these vehicles are used on weekends, during nights, late in the nights, holidays, and they are used for personal reasons and purposes, as is alleged. And therefore, again, I want to call out the necessary authorities. These are all state properties, and they are not personal properties as some person would want to believe. Across this country, in all these different regions, credible sources would have indicated to us that very many state compounds, which means health facilities and schools, are clean, weed and clean, or may I rephrase, based on what would have said, that contracts would have been signed for a monthly weeding and cleaning of school compounds and health facilities across this region. When you look at these compounds, there you have nothing to weed or to clean. It is cleaned of all shrubs and grasses and bushes, so there's nothing to clean. However, claims are submitted for payments. The head of these of these sub offices and these sections, whether health center or health outpost or what have you, head teachers of these schools, they sign off as work being properly completed and payment recommended. And this is by extension, I'm told, in ministries and agencies also, other ministries and agencies. And so the accounting officer signs off as work properly done. But the accounting officer signs off based on what was stole from the ground. And payments are made. And those payments are made because they are illegal payments, because work was not done. Claim was made for payments. Verification would have done. And the payments would have been made. So the question is, when this payment is made for work not done, then where the money goes. Here is where the Auditor General has the state duty to find out, to ask for a list, or I should not say what they should ask for. I should say they should do the work diligently so that state funds can be properly accounted for. And that is an illegal act. Very much so that those of us who are to be beneficiaries of those facilities in its use are seeing it on a daily basis. You know, I said to you some time ago, I have 8 minutes more. I'm wrapping up now. And this is the last point. Contractors are complaining bitterly in this region, Region 2. It is alleged that at the sub-treasury, a certain person is making demand of large sums of money. It is alleged. And in cases gone by, it is alleged that these sums of money were paid by these contractors to the particular officer. But at this stage, these contractors would have complained, and the allegation is that they are now disgusted and they can't pay that sum of money. That is one scenario. In the other scenario, it is alleged that some contractors have a delay in their payment because they do not or they do not want to subscribe to the demand as made by this officer. It is alleged again. I'm using it over and over so that people can say that I said so. And because these things are happening, there is need for some authority to look into. Maybe the accountant general who looks over all these sub-treasuries across this country can be the rightful person to make that intervention. Maybe. And so, viewers, I think we want to have one other point made in this 2 minutes. And I want to rebut something that was said some time ago, which should have been maybe 1 week or 2 weeks ago. It says PTA of Guyana, National PTA established. That is far from the truth. Launched, the PTA, National PTA was launched, well, whatever it is, but it is means the country. That is not true. It is not launched. The first national PTA of this country came into being when the Honorable Derek Bernard, the late Honorable Derek Bernard, was Minister of Education. And I want Priya Manik Chan to now go and look at the records and let our officers look at the records and stop misleading her. And she must stop misleading herself and know that this is not the first national PTA that was launched in this country. It was launched under the leadership of the late, the Honorable Derek Bernard when he was Minister of Education. So I thought I should make that point. And again, I'm wrapping up on the last point. In Region 2, it was brought to our attention, and I'm going to give you the vehicle numbers. PAG 3522, I repeat, PAG 3522 and PPP 31, PPP 31, they are both heavily tinted vehicles, and they find themselves parked for long hours in front of the residence of persons, to the discomfort of these persons as it relates to security reasons. And I give you that information because credible sources would have asked me to give this information. And they've also sent pictures to me having these vehicles parked late in the nights, creating a insecurity rather, to the residents. Viewers, I want to express gratitude and thanks for the time we spent with you and for the time you spent with us tonight. Continue to give us your support. Continue to send in to us your pieces and bits of information so that we can be properly able to relate these bits of information to our viewers. And to our viewers, thank you very much. May God bless you. Have a good night. And next Wednesday at 6:30, this program will be on again. Good night. May God bless you.